Hi guys, and welcome to this video on how to paint a gouache watermelon. So let's get right to it. So I have some gouache brushes here, and this is a number 12 brush. We're gonna set that aside and probably use that. I also have a number 6. These are both round brushes. So we're gonna start by activating our paint just like you would with watercolor, just spraying it down with a spray bottle. You don't want to spray too much because you don't want to make them too runny, but they're going to be okay. So we're going to start with our light sketch first. So I'm going to sketch a triangle shape, and this is going to move. All right, so we're just going to do a triangle. It's a little slice of watermelon, and we're going to try to make them look a little bit 3D as well. So you can go dark on this because with gouache, you can layer nice and you're not going to see the pencil marks. So we're going to arc this, and that's going to be the bottom, but then we're going to do another line here, just following the line down, and on this side as well. And then we're going to round it off, just like we did with that first line, bring it together. So now to make it more 3D, this is a little bit, we don't want it too pointed because it gets a little unrealistic there. I mean, I don't know, usually they're a little bit rounded. So now we're going to make a line like this, and then we're going to connect back. Let's do a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. Here we go. And then we're going to connect that back to the top, and this line is going to slowly almost disappear. Okay, and now we're about ready to paint. So I've got my water on this side here, and I'm going to dip in with my number 6 round. Actually, let's do the number 12. Let's go for it. So we're just going to grab some of this beautiful bright red color. This one, you can tell it has a little bit of blue in it versus a little more blue versus this one that has more of an orangey or red, a yellow tone to it. And we're just going to start painting all of the part that would, not be in the white and the green parts. So we're gonna do some different colors, contrasting colors later, but I just want to put my base color down. And I'm gonna get a little bit quiet as I'm painting this part. Oops, there we go, that's okay. And do you think that these are always perfectly cut? No, not necessarily. So if you feel like you do an oops like me, just remind yourself, it's okay, this is practice. Now we have enough water that we can spread the gouache around, but we don't want to have too much that it feels like watercolor. Because if there's too much water in there, we're going to get a really transparent painting. We're gonna have to do a lot of layers to cover up, some of those pencil marks, for example, but also we want it to be opaque. And when it's opaque, you can do light layers to dark layers and vice versa, which is the great thing about gouache, for example. And gouache, if you're not familiar with it, I would say it's a nice mix kind of between a watercolor and an acrylic paint. Very versatile, and we've got that on there really nicely. Okay, so now we're going to rinse our brush, and we're going to put some green down here. So I'm going to grab, and I'm cleaning my brush, and then I'm going to put it in the cleaner water to try to get it as clean as possible. There's still some red in there, that's okay. So I'm gonna grab some of this teal color, and my paints, I haven't used these in about a month, so they're just a little bit dry, but that's okay. We add some water to make that paint move. I'm gonna mix them together a little bit. I'm going to add some of this red on purpose to desaturate that green. And then there's that blue-green in there. So it's kind of a nice, more natural shade, okay? So I think what I'm gonna do is probably switch up though to my number 6 brush. And we are going to add a little more paint here and start layering the green on the bottom. So on the side here, you're gonna have the green, and then you're gonna go around this way. I'm just gonna move my paper so that I can paint this at a more comfortable angle. That's okay. Don't worry about angling your paper or worrying that that's gonna be a problem. You can connect this part too, just really thinly. Some people say that you should be able to paint everything from one angle, But I say, why stress about that? That sounds really stressful and hard. If you don't have to live by that motto, don't. Now, I think it does develop really good muscle memory and skills, and it's okay if one side is a little bit thicker or darker than the other. It's great to develop those skills, but don't stress yourself over it is kind of my bottom line. All right, so I'm going to rinse my brush in the rinsing water, dip it in the cleaner water, and dab it on my paper towel. And now I'm just going to kind of do a little watercolor effect here. So clean my brush again. I'm just going to kind of diffuse that line so that I'm bringing up that color a little bit into the white just to make those lines really light. Oh, and sometimes the red will go inside, and that's okay. You can take a clean damp brush and mop up some of that color, but it's okay if it melts together. I think it looks more natural when we start adding in a little bit of that water to break up that color a little bit and loosen it up. And we can loosen up this piece too. So clean brush, dab, spread color. And voila. Okay, so it's starting to come together nicely. Now I want to lighten up this area. I'm going to add in maybe some darker red first. That's not what I said. I said lighten up, but we're going to add some dark on this side just to create some contrast so it doesn't look flat. And I made it really, really dark, so you can add more red in here, just a little at a time. And then some more water. You want it to be spreadable. You want to be able to paint with it. And this is going to create that contrast, that shadow side, that'll make this look more like it's three-dimensional. So I'm simply painting on, following the contour, following the line. I can see the pencil line here. I'm not worried about straight lines either, so don't worry about it. You know, I like to say there is no room for perfectionism in art. And I say that because we tend to somehow react as if we need to do things perfectly. And I say all the time, I'm a very messy painter. I can't apologize for it. Sometimes I feel bad about it, you know, if I'm making a video and I'm like blobbing paint everywhere. But at the same time, I'm hoping that that's giving a sense of reality, of realism for people who are also in that space feeling like they're messy painters. Okay, I'm going to switch back to the number 12. It's got a lot of green on here. We don't want green. We're going to go to a pinkish shade. So I'm not even going to mess with that. I'm just going to start new over here. If you've noticed, I have my warm colors and my cool so that we can keep them separate. All right, so I'm going to grab some white, and it looks like I need to get some more. I want to add a lot of white and a little bit of red to make a nice pink color because I want to do some contrasting lines and just make it look real pretty. And maybe I want to add a little bit over here and maybe a lot more red over here because we could do several different shades, you know, which would be kind of fun. But anyway, we'll see how it goes. So I'm grabbing this one. Again, I don't need my brush to be too clean. And moving the palette. I'm just going to, you know, create just a little bit of contrast. You know, I like brush strokes to be seen. I like a painterly look. So you might not like that and want to blend your lines a lot, and that's okay. All right, so we have that kind of medium shade, and I want to, or that medium value, I want to add a little bit more lightness, some more white. This is really just an experimentation. You're just kind of mixing and seeing what works. You know, and if you have like too much water on your brush, you're gonna have a hard time, you know, seeing some of those brush strokes show up. So a little bit of those painterly marks, and we're just playing and seeing what happens. And then I'm gonna take a little bit more of that dark, mixing it in here so we have more paint and less water. And we're just going to kind of, you know, add that in. If you want to, this is really dark, so you can add some of that too. We're gonna do some seeds also, and that'll be fun. This shade here, this lightness, might be kind of fun to add a little bit here. It's dark, But what we have on that one side is very, very dark. So just lightening it up a little bit with a little extra paint, and we'll see how it looks when it dries. So, okay, I'm gonna let this dry. Actually, before I let it dry, I'm gonna do a background. I think it would be fun to do a background since this is such a small painting. So I'm going to move this a little bit so we have more of that paper exposed, and we will awaken this blue. We're gonna add a little bit more blue here. And I think I'm just gonna do a pretty light wash of color. Since you know I like the painterly look, the brush strokes, I'm not going to blend everything together and even leave some dry brushing. I think that can look really nice sometimes. All right, so adding that in, and we're hoping that our lovely fruit is going to be dry by the time we're done with this, and if not, I will hit it up with a hairdryer, and I'll be back with you so that we can draw in our seeds, paint in our seeds. You must have the watermelon seeds, or it's just not a watermelon, guys. Okay, and just leaving it a little rough around the edges as well. So this part is where it's helpful to have a pointed brush. It really does make things easier for you getting around stuff. And getting this here. So, with art, I always encourage you guys just to try to encourage yourself with really healthy thoughts, self-calming thoughts about the situation, about what you're painting. And so you're not stressing out about the whole process, because when we're stressing out about the process, we are not enjoying painting time, which is supposed to be a beautiful self-care experience where you're feeling all kinds of happy feelings of content and, maybe just sometimes euphoria when you paint something new for the first time that you didn't realize you could paint and it surprises you, or you learn a new skill. Sometimes we feel pretty excited about that. And so it's a special thing to be able to paint, but when we get all bogged down, I'm adding just more paint directly. When we get bogged down with our feelings and our thoughts about, maybe we're not good enough, or perfectionism creeps in, we just ruin our own experience and end up hating the process. So if you are painting and you're not finding that you're enjoying that process, I encourage you to find at least one good positive thought about your experience. Maybe it's simply, hey, I completed my first painting. You can even say I didn't die, like it was a good experience. I learned new things. I'm going to keep practicing. I'm going to keep getting better. Just feeding yourself helpful narratives will give yourself a much better experience, which will encourage you to try harder and continue to try. So just saying, all those things are important. I'm going to mix up this lovely dark color here. And I just want to add a little bit in just as a contrast right at the edge. And it's probably going to bleed into the blue. And I'm totally prepared that that might happen, and that's okay. And I'm telling myself that's okay, so then I will feel that it's okay. There's no perfectionism. There's no room for perfectionism in art. Okay, so we're almost done. I'm going to hit this up with a hairdryer so we can do the seeds, and I'll be right back. Okay, we are almost done with this painting. I'm grabbing some black here. I'm just going to put it on this corner because I don't want it to run into all the paint. But we're going to do some seeds, little seeds here, and I'm going to make them random. So we're just doing a teardrop shape, and I'm going pretty thick because I don't want them to be transparent in the least. So they're more pointed at the top and then rounder at the bottom. And you can even do some to the side. I'm getting excited now. That was a big one. That was a big one. You can make them a little bit to the side. And so, but yeah, don't worry. It's basically a circle with a point. Sometimes people put the seeds all the same direction, and sometimes people put white seeds too. You can do that if you want to as well. And just put those marks in. Usually, I think there's not too much there at the tip, right? So I'm gonna just do one to the side here. Kind of like that. And I would say that's pretty good. What I want to do, of course, since seems like I'm never done, I just want to add a little bit more blue now that we have that first layer on, because why not? So there's some parts that you can see through, and I just want to clean that up a little bit. So thank you guys for being here. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about gouache with me. I'm trying to press myself to paint more with gouache so that I can continue to learn. I usually do watercolor, but if you guys are interested, I also teach on Patreon, watercolor specifically, but I have been having some gouache tutorials as well, once a month or so here and there. So the link is in the description of the video. Right now, it is a 7-day free trial to Patreon. Risk-free, just to try it out and see if you like my bonus content. All right, guys, happy painting, and I will see you soon on the next video. Take care.